Back in 1961, John F. Kennedy said in the inaugural speech, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." In his election campaign, Barack Obama gave a similar speech to a class of young students in Arlington, Virginia in September 2009. Now, Obama began his speech sharing his personal story about when he was a young boy. His mother could not afford expensive schools or tutors, so she taught him in the mornings before he had to go to the regular public school. Every day he had to be up for 4:30 a.m., nice and bright early, and it was study time with Mom. His complaint about the ungodly hour was replied with, "This is no picnic for me either, Buster." Now, today's scripture text includes the book of Psalm and Luke. These serve as examples of unconditional obedience and salvation through Christ, and more so by faith in God. Now, they place little value on material things, for which a great many wars have been fought and are still being fought today. The preconception of expected glorification of service instead of unconditional obedience is often the focus in the scriptural text. The books of Mark and Luke begins with an attempt to understand why Jesus dies and what his death means. It brings to question the matter of what discipleship means: servitude. Earlier, the text summarizes a detailed prediction of Christ's death, and somehow James and John interpret it as an opportunity to achieve their own glorification amidst that which awaits Jesus, who actually earned all of the glory that awaits his ministry. Now, Jesus is not impressed by the two brothers and speaks of his violent death that awaits him personally, a death that leaves him powerless and despised by many. Christ's death is part of his ministry because it demonstrates that those in the world in positions of power will do anything to protect themselves and any implications from such a ministry. This is in some ways parallel to the parable of the two brothers fighting over the inheritance in Luke's text. Now, James and John are merely examples of well-meant but misguided individuals. Nonetheless, there were others in Jesus' day who misconceived his work, and hence Jesus corrected them and often referred to the negative examples of the Gentiles, hold-on coercion and power play. Now, James and John did not ask Jesus what they could do to help his ministry, but instead asked to just be part of what they conceived to be glorification. Similarly, the man in Luke 12 asked Jesus to get him his share of the inheritance, and he did not ask what he could do for his community, and more so, what he could do for God. In today's context, Obama does not say, "Just show up." Instead, he tells students to play an active part in their future. Today, Obama goes on to remind the students that having the best and most dedicated support, whether it be teachers and parents, won't matter unless the students show up and put in the hard work to succeed. Basically, we need to understand that we are responsible for our own lives, and in this case, our own education. This is important because education teaches us problem-solving skills, insights, and critical thinking skills. All of these are learned through the sciences and social-cultural studies. In turn, of course, the skills acquired through these studies are actually what becomes helpful in fighting poverty, homelessness, crime, and discrimination. Most importantly, it helps make our nation more fair and free, working toward equality under the eyes of God. It is a challenge to imagine equality in a world of imbalances. Overabundance of goods on the market is often met with higher prices by limiting the actual quantity available for consumers. I am reminded of a few years ago when I was in the market for a new vehicle, the Suzuki Aero. My friend and I were looking to buy the exact same type of car, so we shopped together. We found only one available per auto sales lot, despite the fact that it had been advertised and on the market for 3 months. And this, of course, made the prices non-negotiable. Being bargain hunters, of course, we moved on. The quantity available was purposely limited, therefore the price was high. Now, if you visit a mall and you find yourself on the holy ground of the Temple of Avarice, there's so much stuff. And much of it, of course, nobody needs. Yet the entire ambiance is cleverly arranged to invite us to buy, to acquire, whether or not we need it. We have television programs that challenge our lifestyles, such as Hoarders. It makes me fear going into my own storage room. Someday I really need to get rid of all that stuff. One of my favorite stores is IKEA. And I wish I could afford a warehouse to display some of that stored junk. Question though, for me, you, and everyone else, do we need so much stuff? And more so, do we need more education and maybe less stuff? Without these aforementioned educational skills, we are apt to quit. Obama notes, if you quit on yourself. And more importantly, you quit on your country. So no matter what our personal situation, what we look like, and how much money we have, there is no excuse for not at least trying. Where we are right now does not determine where we will end up. It does, however, influence our success in the betterment of society. Society in Jesus' day was not all that different from today. The concept of oppression and issues of slavery, servitude existed then and still exists today. The difference is that we today have the past, the Bible, as a reference point. The greatness in Jesus and his followers is actually found in understanding their ability to live as servants and slaves, including living a life of oppression for the sole purpose of fighting such a life. Now, to clarify, Jesus declares that God will free the people from this oppression by restoring them to God's reign. Of course, this raises questions as from whom does Jesus' death deliver people? And who benefits? Importantly, of what value are all our goods, money, homes, cars, when there is no God? Unlike the Egyptians of the past, we do not have large pyramids to basically take all our stuff with us. Perhaps we can think of all these issues from the perspective of sin, forgiveness, and the purpose of Christ's death in the first place. Rather than get caught up in the complexities and slavery of materialism, the scriptures portray the simplicity of Jesus' own exemplary servitude, leader by example, and reward in the future. Today we can comprehend the examples of brothers James and John, as well as the man in Luke's parable, as individuals who got caught up in the lure of control, power, and wealth. We can ask ourselves what it means to imitate Jesus, who relinquished his powers to his enemies and his possessions to the world, solely relying on the emergence of God's promise and future reign. Obama states that success is hard work, but by setting goals and committing to them, it is then that we learn. Hence, we cannot let failures and fortunes define us. What we own is not what defines us in favor of God's eyes. Making the best of our lives and asking for help is a sign of strength. In fact, strength can be found in the power of prayer. Prayer is the path of salvation.